Good to see you.
We're going to give it a few more minutes, and then we'll start with Ravi's 3 to 5 minute current event, and then we'll dive right into your presentation, Professor.
Okay. Presentation is probably a heavy word, but we'll have some fun for an hour. How about that? Great. I'll attempt to bring some interesting stuff, and we'll discuss and interact. How about that?
Even better.
Cool. Hello, Varun. Tara or Tara? Tara?
It's Tara.
Tara.
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Looks like you are on the bus.
Yes, I'm almost back to my dorm.
Very cool. Nick, welcome. It looks like we have a few others logged on, but you never know if they're actually at their computer, right? So sometimes you're just speaking into the ether. You can tell them hello and then you don't hear anything, just crickets. So
yeah, I don't envy professors right now talking to like 200 black screens.
Yeah, not in my classes, man. We tie professionalism and effort to having your camera on if you can, and if you can't, you better have a good reason. So you might not like my class, Will. You're one to
I don't mind that policy at all, but like every class I have now, there's like no rule you need to have your camera on. So I feel like the default is that people have them on.
Yeah. I believe it. Christian, hello.
How you doing?
Arian?
Yeah, Arian.
Arian, good to see you. Bulls fan? Are you a Bulls fan? Chicago Bulls, or is that a different Bulls?
Oh yeah, same Bulls.
Nice. Very cool. Jake, you're, if I recall, 76ers, right? Big Sixers fan?
Correct. That's correct.
Very nice.
Wait, are you from the summer class, Bus X170?
Yeah. Did you take X170?
Yeah, I took it during the summer.
Say again?
I took the class during the summer.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. It's good to see you again. Did you enjoy the class?
Yeah, it was pretty like it taught me something. I'd say that.
Did it help you kind of transition into Kelly?
Yeah, I did. I would say so.
Good. That's one of the reasons we do it.
Rob, you want to pull your slide deck up?
Yeah, I'll get on that.
Perfect.
All right. Can you guys see it?
Yes. We'll begin now with the current event. I want to make sure we have enough time for the interactive portion of Professor Bo's non-presentation.
Definitely.
Nice, Jake. I like it.
Yeah. All right. So Corporate Strategy Club meeting number 3. Thanks, guys, for coming out. We got a great presentation, so appreciate everyone being here. This current event is going to be on the travel rebound and the tech correction. And just to start, another announcement on dues. They're going to be due at the end of the meeting. So my Venmo information is over here. It's also in the group me, and I'll drop it afterwards. So no worries on that, but just get them in by the end of the meeting if possible. So I'd just like to start. We're talking about the tech correction and the travel rebound. So that's obviously been in the news and talked about a lot. And if you guys have any thoughts in relation to those and the pandemic, please share now if you feel comfortable. All right. If Cole, you got something to say? Were you?
Oh, no, I was going to tell you, you can probably keep going.
Yeah. No worries. We could just get into it. To start with the travel rebound, this is a quote from the CEO of American, Doug Parker. And they've been comparing the demand that they've seen, a surge in demand to the 2019 levels and spring break, which is very comparable, and that's really refreshing to hear. So the travel stocks have been actually rebounding as of recently. A lot of the airlines like American, Delta, Southwest, and more that aren't pictured here actually have been rebounding a lot, just because of a surge in demand due to the vaccine stuff and a lot less cash burn than they were exhibiting previously. So it's been really refreshing to hear. And as for the tech correction, as you guys are familiar with the NASDAQ composite, it's tripled its value over the last 7 years and increased 5,000 points over the same time frame, which has caused a lot of people to reason that it's a little bit overvalued, and a lot of the stocks within it are overbought. And we've seen a lot of volatility last week. There was about 9.7% decrease, I believe, a week ago, which is close to that arbitrary 10% value. So that's definitely led a lot of people to believe that there's a tech correction coming, which a lot of people associate inherently with a big market crash or, the economy coming down. But I think it's important to assert there are a lot of positives that come within it. The first thing is that valuations kind of fall into line. So a lot of companies are very overvalued within the NASDAQ right now. A lot of them aren't turning, extremely large profits, but they are overvalued as, people are projecting their growth and their utility over time. So it's caused a lot of these companies to be overvalued. So with a correction, the valuations tend to fall into line, which is definitely a good positive. And it decreases volatility over time. Something interesting that not a lot of people address is the flow of tech talent. A lot of, young and up and coming people that have earned degrees in the tech field kind of flow directly into startups and companies with high growth potential. And, full-fledged companies that are more traditional and are looking to increase their technology are not able to attract this tech talent. So having them flow into traditional companies helps a lot more. And the last thing is it kind of levels the playing field. So there are a lot of emerging fledgling companies that are trying to, break into this tech sector, which is really difficult given these overvalued companies. And it certainly levels the playing field a lot. So it's probably the most market positive here. And I know Professor Bo is going to discuss the algorithm here. So I'll pass it off, but it definitely ties into leveling this playing field a bit. But yeah, so I'll pass it off to Professor Bo. But yeah, that was our current events for this week.
Me already? Jake, Will, nothing? Yeah?
Yeah, this is your time to shine. We do a quick current event, and then it's all
All
yours.
right.
So
Take it
All
away.
right.
all you.
Give me just a second. I'll get going. By the way, it is not lost on me that you all probably looked at slide decks and have been on Zoom already today. And here you are, 8 p.m., back at it. So I just much respect. And Jake, I don't know if you've introduced me as this, but I am your official faculty advisor.
I should have. Yes, this is Professor Bo. We've done a lot of marketing. Abby. Thank you. I'll just stick around after, and we'll tell everybody who you are. But this is our new faculty advisor, Professor Bryce Bo. Excuse me.
No, you're good. You're good. But yeah, I am thrilled to be connected to you all, and I love the little tagline where CEOs are made. That's pretty cool. And honestly, I was thinking about that today, and I'm super biased because I teach strategy and I think it's important. But man, it's so true, right? We talk about in our class, J375 at the end of your Kelly career on purpose, right? Because it involves marketing, it involves operations, it involves finance and accounting and leadership. It involves a lot of different aspects of business, right? Strategies everything kind of funnels up to how do you allocate capital? How do you create value? How do you capture value? So I love it. I love being connected to you all. And kudos again for being out here. I got to say this too. I loved when I was in college, my roommates, and there's lifelong friendships. But man, I was looking back, I was part of a few clubs and I still stay in touch with those people, right? And so one of the benefits is the skills and, you learn about this and that, you're interested in the topic and information, but it's also the relationships, the friendships. You never know. I mean, Jake, Will might be in your wedding. I mean, it's maybe awkward to think about. It feels too far away, but it could happen. So anyways, just fun to think about. I remember people telling me that, and I did have people in my wedding. Some of my roommates were standing up on the stage with me kind of thing, right? It's just special. So kudos again for being here. If you haven't got the sense now, I get a little animated, a little enthusiastic. I try to bring energy. So hopefully if you're feeling drained, you receive some energy. If you're looking at this title, Jake and Will sit it out, but it's provocative on purpose. And I promise I will explain what those terms are. That's kind of the premise. All right. So here's what I've got planned. We'll see, depending on time. I want to do kind of an interactive overview of this $1 trillion algorithm, the T algorithm. I got a mini Spotify case if y'all want it. If not, no worries. And then I was thinking Q&A, AMA. It's some blend of that, right? We'll bounce questions back and forth, do a little discussion if you want to, or just ask me anything if it comes up. And sometimes that's the best, just open, free exchange like that. So I'm open to all of that. Quick about me, in case you care, some of this could come across as boasting or something. It's not intended to be. I thought maybe you would find it interesting to learn a little bit more about my background. I love basketball, so I wanted to coach and play and teach. And what's interesting is I still get to teach, and I've been part of a few businesses, and it's amazing how leadership in business is very much like coaching a team in sports, right? Tons of crossover. But that was my first love. Anybody familiar with the Zeller family? Show of hands. Know a few sports folks. So they're three brothers. They're all 7 feet tall. They all played in the NBA. They were all Mr. Basketball of the state of Indiana, which is maybe a better title or more important title than playing in the NBA in this state. They were voted the best high school player in the state, each of them. So I was kind of with the organization, built it up with their family. The next season of life, I call grad school years, hence the glasses. I don't know. I got really deep into just learning, and the Walt Disney Company. Anybody a fan of Disney that's willing to admit it? You're not too old to be a fan of Disney. Come on. There we go. Hey, seriously though, Disney is a super interesting company from a corporate strategy standpoint. My goodness, right? Think about how diversified the business is. You got Disney Plus, which is getting all the headlines, but you got the parks, cruises, toys, merchandise, video games, movies. There's all kinds of stuff that Disney's a part of and doing. So, but I got really into Disney. I wrote kind of my grad school thesis of sorts on the Walt Disney Company. My wife is from Florida. This is her, Tabitha. She's a big Disney fan, so it's something we kind of have in common. If you notice the bottom right, we have been to the last 6 now shareholders meetings. Unfortunately, this one was last week, actually. It was virtual, not the most exciting, but they're normally around the country. We travel around the country, so I'm kind of a student of the company in a sense from a corporate strategy standpoint. By the way, little trivia, where did the current CEO of Disney graduate?
You.
Go Hoosiers. Yeah, he's a Hoosier, so kind of cool. Most recently, I was part of the haircut brand. So I took over an old business, created a new brand, hired employees, and tried to really kind of create a new business model in some ways. We called it Clipper and Soul. One of the reasons I did it was because my mom, she did hair for a number of years up in Muncie, Indiana, where I'm from. She passed away around 6 years ago. Unfortunately, it's kind of a traumatic, sudden type thing. So this was a way to honor her. It was also a way to have some entrepreneurial experience and entrepreneurial itch. Anybody got the entrepreneurial itch? You'd love to have your own business at some point, someday, even if it's on the side. Yeah, right. I had that. I don't know if I got it as much anymore. It's still there a little bit, but not like it was, man. I had to just do my own thing. So we had 10 employees. We created this new business model. We actually won 2020 Best of B-Town, which some of you are like, who cares? It's a college town. It's not that impressive. I hear you. For us, it was a big deal. We never even been nominated. So to win it was a big deal. Unfortunately, I got news last week. So I sold it back in 2019, late 2019. That found some buyers. So it was acquired, all the intellectual property, the brand, the assets. I got word a couple weeks ago that the business was closing. So the new ownership group decided to shut it down, kind of a casualty of COVID. A lot of haircut businesses, a lot of barbershops going out of business. So anyhow, it was a cool story for a while. And I learned a ton, but that was what I did most recently. All right. So we ready for kind of the main stuff tonight? Who is Prof G? Anybody know Professor Scott Galloway? Show of hands.
Yeah, he was on HBO, wasn't he?
Say again?
Was he on HBO like in the last week?
Yeah, I think he was on Bill Maher.
Yeah, Bill Maher. Yeah, real time.
Yeah, I think so. So he is a professor at NYU Stern. He's also been an entrepreneur, started some of his own endeavors. He said he wants to be the most influential thought leader in the history of business. But he's really kind of in your face, eccentric, says some crazy things like gangster. He says it all the time. Hence the title of tonight's talk. So this was him commenting on HBO's decision to send kind of their new movies direct to the streaming service. Big strategy, right? Unfolding before our eyes in the streaming world. But he also just says it. This was at Michael Jordan's speech during the Kobe Bryant event. #gangster. And I learned through a little research, he has a dog named Gangster. So he really likes that word and uses it a lot. So I've recently been studying his T algorithm. He's got this formula that he says, it's the recipe to create a $1 trillion company. And some of you are like, well, $1 trillion company, those haven't even existed for a couple years now. I hear you, but the idea is you extract what you can and apply it to any company, any team, any department, any business. Okay. And I'm going to show you some examples, even for me, from a small business perspective, how we implemented some of these things. But I've kind of been knee deep in this, so I want to talk about it. I want to throw it by you. So here's kind of the algorithm. Here's the recipe. Take that in for just a second. And we're not going to have time to unpack all of these tonight, but I want to at least cover a few. Who are today's trillion-dollar companies, by the way? Who's achieved this feat currently? Go ahead, raise your hand, on mute. I'm not going to cold call. This is a club. You're here on your own time. I would never do that.
Or Apple, Google.
Okay, Apple, Google, good.
Microsoft.
Microsoft, good.
Amazon.
Amazon, good. Hey, Priam, what's going on, man? Priam's in one of my other classes, hanging out in the background over there. By the way, here's the irony of ironies, as fate would have it. Priam, who did you do your presentation on today?
Amazon and AWS.
Amazon. So he knows Amazon well. But these are currently the trillion-dollar companies. I think back in 2007, PetroChina was briefly a trillion-dollar company. Maybe it still is, depending on how you calculate it. It's partially owned by the government to an extent. So, but these are kind of the main ones. So again, I'm going to talk not just about big companies. I'm going to try to bring it back to small business too. So if you are going to start your own thing, to think about even from a smaller footprint, you can still apply some of these things. All right. So the first one, hence the title tonight, Rundle, is this idea of, Rundle. So what is a Rundle? Reoccurring revenue bundle. Reoccurring revenue bundle. Any come to mind just based on this definition?
Would Amazon Prime fit into that? Would Amazon Prime fit into that?
That would be the number one example, the king or queen of Rundles currently. Look at all the stuff you get, right? Amazon Video and music and Prime Pantry, Wardrobe, Twitch. You get, special perks on Twitch, all kinds of stuff. Any others?
I mean, really any subscription service like Netflix or Disney Plus.
Yeah, so Netflix is interesting. Do you get a bundle with Netflix or you just get one thing? Right? So if you look at here, you get all these different, you get some music, you get some movies, you get, shipping. Whereas Netflix, it's similar or somewhat just one thing. But I hear you. That comes to mind for a lot of people. Disney could be interesting because what else does Disney own? Not just Disney Plus. ESPN Plus. What's the other one?
Hulu.
Yeah, Hulu. And they are bundling those together for a discount. So it's kind of a Rundle. That's new for Disney. They didn't have that before, right? This kind of this bundled together kind of recurring revenue. So anybody familiar with the Apple One? This just launched it this fall. So you were probably already, if you're an Apple person, already paying for a few of these, iCloud and maybe Apple TV Plus. They were basically giving away for free, it seemed like, for the longest time. But now it's one price. There's different tiers, actually. Spotify. Anybody read the big news a couple of weeks ago with this new hi-fi? So Spotify came out with a new tier, a hi-fi tier. So check it out. Not only do you get all the stuff for Spotify Premium, you get a newer high-def kind of quality. They call it lossless CD quality audio. Tidal was doing this originally. That was kind of their thing. Pre-sale concert tickets and discounts on limited edition vinyls, right? You're like, why would Spotify be in vinyls? It's like putting them, it's like a competitor to them, right? Like trying to take some of their show. They're jumping on that trend, I guess. But it's moving towards a bundle. They're getting multiple things. Anybody been to Restoration Hardware? Classic kind of retail business, right? Home furnishings. Check this out, bottom right. So for $100 a year, you get 25% off everything. Additional 20% off when things are on sale. Complimentary interior design services, right? So all kinds of different bundles. And if you look at, I didn't bring up the stock price, but you could look yourself. Over the last 5 years, I think it's up like 1,000% for a retail home furnishing company, right? And one of the big ideas, Okay, so laser in here is reoccurring revenue companies for whatever reason from investors, right? Either, venture capital type investors or just, public market investors look at reoccurring revenue companies slightly differently than a transactional company, right? They're based, they're judged on multiples of revenue versus multiples of EBITDA. And that's why you get some of these really high valuations for some of these companies that are super young, but they're building these reoccurring revenue pipelines. And this idea of the rundle is I think just super interesting. Here's a prediction. You ready? Disney's going to have a rundle, a more robust rundle. Like, can you imagine not only getting Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus, but also getting a discount at theme parks, right? Or getting into the theme parks earlier, right? Or you get to pick a better room on the cruise ship, right? Or on Disney.com, you get a discount, or you get special access to certain toys first through Disney.com. You see it, right? I bet it's coming, y'all. I bet it's coming. But here's something we did. We didn't quite get to a rundle, okay? But we said one price, you get all this stuff included, right? And one of the big ones was this loyalty wheel. So you spin the wheel, which is kind of gimmicky, but people loved it. And you could win like a free sandwich, free ice cream, free slice of pizza. We had a bunch of partners in the community we work with. They liked the promotion, the advertising. We liked offering something free to our customers. The next step, y'all, and somebody's doing this around the country. There's a few places actually experimenting with this. The next step is a membership, right? So I said, hey, $20, as many haircuts as you want, all this stuff included, right? So it's the haircut rundle. Didn't get there, but that would be kind of that next step. And again, I think a few around the country are doing this. Benjamin Button. Somebody tell me what the heck Benjamin Button means. Anybody remember the movie or the story? Nobody?
He aged backwards.
There we go. Nick, say again.
He aged backwards.
Cool. Yeah. Brad Pitt. No one remembers this? It's a good movie. There's something called chronological snobbery, okay, where you only like the newest stuff. Some of the old stuff is really good too, right? So make a note to check out Benjamin Button. It's a good movie. It's called The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. In the realm of business, as Professor Galloway says, it's actually a product or service that gets better or stronger as it ages, right? In the trillion-dollar companies, they've got these, right? They've got products or services that are getting better as they get older. Can you think of any examples?
Google search.
In what way, Cole?
Well, the interface has gotten better, and I think that as time has gone on, they've been able to like optimize things based on how people search. And I know a guy who does he's a PhD in their search division. He talks about how they have like psychologists and things and people that do natural language processing and all kinds of other things that they've incorporated.
As time goes on, we make improvements. It's naturally, right? The product, the more inputs you put into it, as it gets bigger, larger, older, it gets better. So you were right on about those inputs, right? As Google, the algorithm gets better, right? The search results become a little more tailored, a little more precise. They can connect ads a little more, smoothly. So yes, that's a good example. Others?
YouTube.
Good.
No.
What way?
Just like suggesting videos.
Yeah. Good.
And also the algorithm is way better. It's like the algorithm is like it gets better every year.
Yeah. Yep. Good. It's another great example. Any others?
I would say that. Oh, go ahead, Tara.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think TikTok could be an example because it kind of started off as Musical.ly, which was very geared towards like younger audiences. And now I feel like TikTok is a way bigger thing.
Yeah. Well, and they have similar to that Google example, right? The more inputs into TikTok. So more people are on it. Your friends are on it, right? There's more content, but then there's learning that happens behind the scenes, right? There's data that they're gathering. And these are the kinds of things people like. These are the kinds of things people don't like. So the more inputs, it gets a little better as it gets older. Now, you could say that the more people that get on it, the more garbage gets on there, right? The more misinformation, the more, stuff that they're trying to remove. You know what's interesting, and we'll come back to vertical integration maybe a little bit later. TikTok is the first social media company to vertically integrate its moderators, right? Well, Facebook's done it a little bit, but TikTok hires the moderators, right? The people that are sifting through all the posts looking for garbage to keep it safe and to keep it somewhat reasonable. But they vertically integrated, and there's a strategy for you. So essentially they're getting benefits. They're employees of the company, not contractors.
MySpace used to do that.
MySpace
in the
did,
day.
really? Oh.
Yeah, if you Mark Zuckerberg actually gave a lecture in 2005 about how one of the key cost differentiators between Facebook and MySpace on the back end. This is when Facebook only had like 4 million users or something like that.
Yeah.
Was that they didn't have moderators in-house, which, as far as MySpace is considering, killed their cost structure. So that's part of the reason why they went out of business. Yeah, it's a fun fact.
Interesting. I wouldn't say that's the main reason they went out of business, but it certainly could have.
Others, but yeah, it contributed.
Yeah, hit their costs pretty hard. TikTok's doing all right with it. Tara, what were you going to say?
I'm not sure if this is an exact example, but I was thinking of just in general tech companies, whether it be phone or computer, because as they produce a new product, like over time, that has to get better to keep staying competitive and catch up with the other technology in the market. But I don't know if that's true because it's not a singular product.
Yeah, kind of, sort of, maybe in a roundabout way, not maybe the textbook example, but yeah, it's there's sunk cost, there's investment into the iPhone, right? There's a whole iPhone team and an iPhone research and development unit. And so in a sense, does the iPhone kind of slowly get better and better as it goes? Yeah, I feel like we're at this point, the progress has been very incremental, right? Like we haven't had any big leaps recently. 5G kind of, right? 5G maybe sort of. Anybody have 5G pretty regularly on their phone? Like tell a difference?
5G is, okay, I hate to interrupt. 5G is a total lie. I wrote a paper on this last year.
So I think you're right in some ways. There are different kinds of 5G. Sometimes 5G is like branding, right? Of like slightly better LTE. I mean, right? But there is true 5G, right?
Yeah,
like
I mean, yeah, if you go to like, Central Park in New York, they have real 5G.
Yeah.
For the most part, if you get 5G anywhere that isn't like a major metropolitan like commercial center, it's partitioned 4G on the network where they take a slice of it and they basically block out a bunch of people who aren't on the other side of a paywall. And then they give you really fast speeds and they simulate it. But I wrote a paper on this.
Yeah, you're right. You're right to an extent, I think. I do think there is such thing as real 5G, and I think it's slowly being rolled out more and more. And we will notice a pretty big difference once it's fully utilized. But anyways, long story short, I don't know if there's been any big leaps with the iPhone. The one that comes to mind, I think was the first one that was mentioned, kind of connected to YouTube, was because you watched, right? Because you watched this, you may like this. And if you've been on Apple TV Plus, by the way, they don't do a good job with this, right? Apple TV Plus is kind of a new streaming service. Netflix, though, because they've got so much data and they're really back end with their algorithm, is fantastic. As Netflix gets older, right, they've got a deeper library. They've got more data on what kinds of shows people like. So they invest in those kinds of shows, right? They know what kinds of shows you like. So they help, steer you towards shows you might like. It's just a beautiful thing. It's kind of a classic Benjamin Button type product. Strava, anybody a Strava user? Nobody. Wow. There's usually like one or two. Okay, I was gonna say there's usually one or two people that are hardcore Strava, right? They're like all about it. It's kind of like exercise meets data meets social network in a sense, right? So Strata's accumulating a ton of data. They're actually selling some of this data to cities, right? Based on like, hey, here are where people are running and right? Here's some data as you plan traffic flows and various things. They're also, though, creating this, social element, right? So the more people that are on it, the more fun it is to interact. You've got different goals, different leaderboards, all those kinds of things. So that's another example. Stitch Fix, anybody? No, man, Stitch Fix is such a cool company. Anybody studying business analytics or data science? Jake, man. So write this down. You were like this. there's something on Stitch Fix's website called the Algorithms Tour. The Algorithms Tour. It's just a page on their website. You scroll down and they're showing you all kinds of cool stuff. But Stitch Fix, they have like, I don't know, 100 data scientists, maybe more on their team. They create clothes, y'all. They connect people to clothing. It's kind of a clothing subscription service. So they got the Rundle element potentially too, or they're moving that direction. Right now, it's probably more of just, you know, a recurring revenue stream. I don't know if it's a bundle yet, but they're gathering a ton of data. And one of the cool insights over the last year for Stitch Fix, get this. Normally they're selling other people's clothes. They got to the point where they had so much data on what people wanted. It didn't exist. They created it themselves, right? So they vertically integrated as well. They started creating their own clothing instead of just essentially connecting people with other manufacturers' clothing. So pretty cool story. Lemonade, one more. Anybody? Another cool company, man. Write it down. So they're trying to disrupt insurance, right? This could be $1 trillion company, right? This could be definitely $1 trillion industry. They'd have to expand, you know, and offer a lot more than they offer now. But the basic idea, right, is as they gather more data, their claims are paid out more accurately, right? And again, some of this you just write machine learning, and you're like, well, what the heck does that mean? You got to dig into it to really know it, right? You can't just say machine learning as like an umbrella term. But this is one of their big plays, is as they get older, they will get better. And for us, we didn't have any fancy algorithms necessarily, but we did focus really hard on Google reviews. And it's kind of a Benjamin Button type deal, right? So the Google reviews, if we can get good ones, right, it generally attracts people. And as we attract more people, right, we can get more reviews, and it creates this beautiful flywheel, So it's one of the closest ways for a smaller company, a smaller business to do well. Man, we focused hard on this. We really went out of our way to ask customers, please leave us an honest review. Here's a discount if you leave us an honest review. And this paid off big time. This paid off really well for us. All right, I got one more, and then we'll stop, all right? We doing all right? Thumbs up? Cool. Appealing to human instinct. This one's kind of funny. So brace yourselves. Buckle up here. So according to Professor Galloway, every successful business, okay, every successful company, specifically the $1 trillion companies, will appeal to a core human instinct, typically one task with an element of survival, such as the brain, the heart, the gut, and the genitals. And it was awkward for everyone. So what do we mean? All right, so here's an example. According to Professor Galloway, Apple is this, appeal to the genitals, right? And some of you are going to be, these are like fighting words. You're like, Apple's not that good, right? It's all like marketing, but there is a status element to Apple, right? It's luxury, it's premium, right? You see the blue text bubble, right? There's some connection there, right? You see the green text bubble and you're like, come on, what are you doing with your life? Right? No, I'm just kidding. Hopefully don't judge people like that. But
this is a real thing. They've done, there's science on this.
Yeah. So I do think there is this idea of appeal to luxury, right? Anybody a fan of Louis Vuitton? Really interesting company, right? Tesla, right? And you say, well, no, I only like Tesla because of what it's doing for the planet. Tesla, a little bit's a status symbol, y'all, right? Tesla says that, hey, you potentially have money and resources, and so you are a good partner potentially in life. You're a good person to reproduce with, as Professor Galloway would say. So there's an interesting example. So he would say Amazon is kind of an appeal to the gut, right? This idea you get just so much, more for less, right? The Prime Rundle is a great example of that, but endless things you need, always at a really good value, or generally at a really good value, right? And it taps into our instinct for survival and consuming and wanting more for less. Walmart would be another example of this. Aldi, is anybody an Aldi shopper? Yeah, right. Aldi just crushes it on this. By the way, where did the CEO of Aldi graduate? Go Hoosiers. Yeah, the CEO of Aldi is a Kelly grad. He actually serves on the Kelly board, I believe. So if you ever want to go work at Aldi, you got a foot in the door, I think. Facebook kind of appeals to the heart, right? This love, connection. We need this as humans. We desire it. We crave it. So whether it's Instagram or WhatsApp, even Oculus, they own Oculus, and it's going to start moving to some of these directions, right? You can sit courtside and watch an NBA game, Jake. You can watch the Sixers, right, with your Oculus VR headset. I mean, that's pretty cool. And lastly, according to Professor Galloway, Google kind of appeals to the brain, right, to the mind, this idea of knowledge, understanding. And he even said it's like this appeal to a super being, right? Like our desire for God, our desire for this all-knowing something, right? And when we send out a Google search, right, it's like we're sending out this request out into the ether for information, and we need it, right, to make good decisions to survive. So yeah, kind of an interesting example. But I would say for us, Clipper and Soul, which one? Let me ask you, Clipper and Soul, which human instinct did we appeal to? Would you say?
The heart, love, and connection.
Oh, okay. In terms of, Sam, elaborate.
Well, I feel like the barbershop is a good way to make conversation with people and to have some connection that you might otherwise not get in your day.
Good. That's not the first one I was going to list, but you're right. There is definitely some connection there, human connection.
I was going to go with status. However, there is science that will prove the connection part, especially when it comes to like women getting their hair done. So
yeah,
we actually did a case study on that in J375.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say status, reproduction, genitals. Yeah, there's that, like you're trying to look a certain way, you're trying to look appealing. So there's potentially that connection. For us even, right? $19, everything included. There was a little bit of appeal to the gut, right? You get more for less. You get more for less. You go to Sport Clips, you got to pay $24, or there's different tiers. For us, it's all included, right? At one fairly reasonable price. So there you go. All right, this is our T algorithm. So I was going to stop here. I've got a Spotify case, like a mini case loaded up, but I was also going to say we could do breakout rooms and discuss, or just do big group discussion, or we could just move straight into Q&A AMA. That'd be more fun. It is your time, my friends. I am just here to be useful, add some value.
How long do you think the Spotify case will take?
Maybe 5, maybe 10. Oh.
I think we could go for it. I'd like to see it. Yeah.
All right, show of hands. Who wants to Q&A AMA? Show of hands. Who wants to do discussion? Show of hands. Who wants to do Spotify case? Cole, you raised your hand twice.
I raised my hand 3 times, so I'm good for anything.
Let's do Spotify real quick. So this is applying the T algorithm to Spotify. So there was some legwork, there's some research, and this is part of Professor Galloway's course. So I kind of took the official course to kind of get trained in some of this stuff, but you got to do some legwork and figure out who are the competitors and where do they rank in these. Look at the bottom. You got all of the different parts of the T algorithm, and then you're trying to put them in different categories and put labels on them. And then ultimately you arrive at this grid of where do we need to invest? Where do we need to spend more time? So here's the takeaways from that. So Hi-Fi, I think, is a fairly improved Rundle, right? So they're adding all of these new services, discounts, concert tickets, all that stuff. I think it's a good step for Spotify towards a true Rundle versus just some reoccurring revenue, right? They're bundling together all of these different things for the consumer at a low price, or fairly low price. I would also say some of the new stuff is appealing to human instincts. Right. So you've got, this idea of free, right? So with the Spotify family premium subscription, you get free kids content, and the kids content's fairly robust. There's a lot of stuff, right? So you're getting value, which appeals to the gut, right? Kind of like the Amazon example. There's also exclusivity, right? So if you've got Spotify, that means you get access to exclusive Michelle Obama podcast, exclusive Joe Rogan, right? There's exclusive. So there's a little bit of a status and kind of luxury appeal that they're going for too, right? It's the only place that you can get that, and you're paying for it, right? You're generally, subscribing. So some recommendations. I think it'd be interesting if they vertically integrated as a label and owner of music IP to improve their margins. So what do I mean? Anybody know what percentage that the labels take of each stream or of Spotify's revenue generally?
70.
Like 80 to 90 plus.
Jake said 70, Cole said 80 or 90. The info I gathered was 50 to 70 depending, right? There's some details depending on the artist and the label and the agreement, but 50 to 70%. That's a huge chunk of revenue, right? For Spotify, that's a huge chunk. So if they can invest in emerging artists and vertically integrate, so they're becoming more like a label. Find the artist before they sign with Warner or Universal. Sign them yourself, right? Or come up with some kind of agreement. It could really improve their margin. And also increase their bargaining power, right? When they're renegotiating with Universal for the old stuff, not the new stuff, say, hey, we don't necessarily need you. We want to work with you, but we've got some things we're doing ourselves. You need us as much as we need you. So it improves their bargaining power, which is big in strategy, right? The idea of improving bargaining power.
Professor.
Lastly, utilize exclusive IP and scale to move into video. Yes, I'm saying it, video. Right? So you think about who are they competing with, right? Apple Music, Amazon Music, Google Music, or YouTube Music, actually. What do all these folks have in common? They've got other revenue streams, right? They've got other ways they are bringing in cash, right? Spotify doesn't have that, right? So these folks are at an advantage. So what can Spotify do? Man, I think they got to go after other revenue streams. I think they've got to go after other revenue streams. And they're actually even taking small steps this direction. I don't know if anybody saw this. They signed a deal with a movie studio for some of their original podcast content. So we may see some of the original podcast content become movies. Yeah. I also think they could do the same thing with their kids stuff, right? If they already have a lot of kids paying attention, right? They have access to a lot of kids through the Spotify Premium family. Why not add some video content? So we'll see. I think they could add, certainly stuff about music, but even things, beyond music. Maybe even feature films, and they could appeal to adults and kids. So in summary, anybody surprised by this? Spotify is only valued at $50 billion. Anybody know what Netflix is valued at currently? Take a guess.
300, 400 million.
That's a good guess. I think it's like 220, 225.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think at one point it was 250, but.
Interesting question. So if Disney Plus is a thing, what makes Netflix a tech company and really any more valuable than Disney Plus, where Disney Plus still has basically all their content and, they have the whole vertical essentially. Like why isn't Disney technically a tech company now?
In some ways they are. And Disney's valued much higher than Netflix. I think Disney's valued at like 330, 350, and Netflix, like I said, it's like 225. So that's factored in. The market's factored that in a bit. Do
you think that it would make sense for them to spin off Disney Plus and do it a separate company, try and unlock some of that multiple? Because I don't know what Disney's multiple is right now. But as a separate business unit, we're talking about like a 15x multiple versus like a 30x multiple.
Yeah, it's an interesting question.
They still own the stock.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. What do others think? I mean, I'm happy to share my thoughts. Should Disney spin off Disney Plus, separate company? Maybe want to weigh in. So I'll weigh in real quick, Cole, and then we'll move on. I think no, because it's already being factored in, right? Wall Street, a lot of investors have already really rewarded the company for the massive growth in Disney Plus. The stock's actually trading at an all-time high.
It's doing pretty well.
Yeah, and they just announced at the shareholder meeting I attended, the virtual shareholder meeting last week, that they're at 110 million just for Disney Plus, 110 million users, right? Think about this. They've only been active since I think Disney Plus launched in fall of 2019. That's not that long ago. So, and the theme parks have been closed basically, right? A lot of them. So I think good things to come for Disney, as long as the IU grad doesn't mess it up. Bob Chapek, come on. He just took over the company in March.
He's famous for they have to beat their expectations by 25% every quarter or every year. That's his thing.
That's his goal.
That's what made him so successful at Disney.
Yeah, I think he's a great operator, a great business person. I hope he can steward the company well, because if you start cutting corners at Disney, man, people are going to freak out because they are known as really high quality, right? Really high quality. So we'll see. I think Spotify can be $1 trillion company someday. Might take them a while, but I think they've got an interesting niche. Admittedly, right? Are you with me here? $50 billion. Can't you see them at least being a $200 billion company or reaching Netflix's valuation at some point? So I'm not giving you investment advice. This is not financial advice. But me personally, I do invest in Spotify. I think it's a super interesting company. I think it's got a lot of potential.
I mean,
All right.
I can make the case why not, but that's just me.
Cole, I've only known you for about 45 minutes. I'm guessing that sounds about
I have
right.
a lot of opinions. I have a lot of opinions.
I could see you trying to make a case of why they wouldn't.
Yeah. No, I did well, I mean, I've looked at their stock before, but I think a lot of it's in like how they deliver content and what they have to pay out. And I think they've made some infrastructure, like engineering decisions that I don't think were particularly smart for them. Some stuff that worked and some stuff that I just thought like added a lot to their cost structure that they locked in. Like, for example, they're on the Google Cloud, and I have this debate with a ton of people, but they locked in a huge structure on the cloud. Same with like Lyft. And it adds a lot to their basis in terms of content delivery and how they optimize things that, they're just paying, a foot and mouth for it, like nonstop. So, I mean, there's that and there's licensing, but I think it's really hard for them to get to that next margin thing. And I we can talk all about like cost stuff, but increasing their margins is really hard.
That's a good point. Where am I? There we go. So part of the T algorithm, look at the bottom left, is this, really good companies can balance growth and margins, right? And Spotify, no doubt, has been really pushing growth, probably focused less on margins. But guess who else did that for the longest time, who's now pivoted successfully, a little bit at least? Netflix, right? Netflix for the longest time it's all about growth, all about growth, all about growth. Recently, you've started to see them pivot and start actually talking about margin. I think there was even conversation at their last earnings call about potential, long-term dividend or something, right? I mean, it was really interesting, the shift from Netflix, but it's taken them a long time to get to where they are. So we'll see. I'm not betting against Spotify, I'll tell you that. All right, let's go back to one of the things we could do. If you're curious about what any of these other ones mean, we could definitely talk through those. Otherwise, I'll just kind of open it up. Whatever you got. Or we could break off and discuss. Jake, that's up to you. If you want to do some breakout rooms, we could also do that.
I think we could start with a couple of Q&A questions. I'm sure people have questions. And then we can maybe go into breakout rooms for some extra time. But does anybody have any questions there for Professor Bo?
Is this framework or PowerPoint available externally for us to access, Jake, or for the members in general?
Yeah, I can definitely get it. And then, assuming Professor Bo wouldn't mind sending it out and post it to the, I can get that out.
Yeah.
I actually have a quick question. Basically, I was wondering which of the items of the T algorithm do you think has the highest chance of going wrong, would you say, if a company were to attempt to implement it?
Yeah, some of it's really hard depending on the size of the business, like vertical integration. Like for a haircut shop, it's like, what are we going to vertically integrate? Now, that being said, I actually did have that decision to make at one point. We were maybe going to do our own shampoo, like our own styling aids, right? So we could essentially work with the manufacturer, put our own label on it, and kind of vertically integrate in a sense. Right now, or previously when I was still running it, we bought it from Paul Mitchell or Redken or whoever and just resold it. But yeah, I think vertical integration is tricky depending on the business, right? We've seen some really successful companies do that though, right? Peloton is a really interesting one over the last year, very vertically integrated. Tesla is another one, kind of a cliche example, but man, right from the get-go, very vertically integrated. And the key with vertical integration, especially if you want to appeal to luxury, is you control the customer experience, right? You're not leaving it up to another third party. You control it end to end. So yeah, those would be a few thoughts. Tara?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think you've hit on vertical integration a lot. Maybe just to give everybody who doesn't know exactly what it means, maybe a good definition, the difference between horizontal integration versus vertical integration, and maybe an example of how Spotify could vertically integrate to help its business that you were talking about earlier would be helpful.
Yeah, well, you all can educate me. I don't usually differentiate a ton with horizontal, vertical, diagonal, but basically you look at the value chain. What activities go into creating value for the company, right? So you've got some sort of inputs, you've got manufacturing, you've got distribution, you've got sales and customer service, you've got technology support, you've got infrastructure, right? Office buildings, and right. How much of that should you own Like, should you do yourself? And how much of that should you outsource? How much of that should you rely on other folks? So here's an example. Disney does not generally make their own toys. They work with other people, right? They have not vertically integrated that. They have, as we've seen, become more vertically integrated with their content, right? Before, a lot of their content lived on Netflix or lived on whatever service, and they received a licensing, like a royalty. That's great revenue stream. Now they control the distribution. They control the distribution, right? And that's allowed them to control the customer experience more. They have access to customer data now, right? They know what kinds of things people are watching and interested in. And so it's a more intimate experience with the customer. So anyways, vertical integration, as I understand it, is you take all those activities that go into creating a product or service and creating value, and you decide, right, which of these should we do ourselves and which of these should we outsource and have someone else do for us. Fill in the gaps. What's your understanding, Jake? Or Will? Or
I learned that vertical integration is, excuse me for the noise. Vertical integration is just owning more processes in the value chain from the start to the final product, and obviously horizontal is just within the same part of the value chain. So that was helpful. For Spotify, I kind of did a case on this the other week, actually, for one of my classes in G202. They talked about vertical integration with, you mentioned the record labels and getting to the artists. So it's kind of like from beginner to the user end. So it's a good way to think about it.
Yep. And I think that's huge for them because as Cole mentioned, and as I alluded to, the margins are tough right now for them with the labels. And so if they can find artists earlier before they sign with labels and create some kind of contract or agreement, Spotify's got not only, more margin with that artist long-term, they've got more bargaining power with the labels, right? Spotify is in a position of power a little bit more in that negotiating process because they have to renegotiate with the labels every, so many years.
Hey, Professor, I think this is especially relevant for tech companies and tech talent. But could you talk about career accelerant and how that might relate to some people here at IU or some of our members, maybe how they could differentiate themselves to kind of be in that category of talent that's competed over.
Yeah. So when Professor Galloway talks about this part of this variable in the T algorithm, it's usually more thinking about the firm itself, and is the firm known as a place that helps people accelerate their careers. Like if you work at that firm, you go on to do really neat, interesting things, right? It's a boost, right? And it's essentially you become known as a really cool place to work, a really desired, admired place to work. So that's, think of from a strategy standpoint, you want to be that place in the industry, in the competitive landscape that people want to work at. And it's not just, bean bags and whatever at the office, right? And free food and stuff. And there's other things that go into making a place a really, really great place to work. But yeah, that's what career accelerant means. Nicole, did you have a different understanding that you wanted me to speak on?
I mean, I kind of took it from an employee perspective, but thank you for clarifying that. I think that's important. Yeah, I think you undervalue free food. I'll tell you something. They have a kitchen on every floor at Google in Chicago. So yeah, it's something to consider.
At a certain point, everyone's got that kind of thing, right? It's like, well, I can get free food at Amazon, Google, and
yeah, it's actually that cheap, not that hard to provide from a cost perspective, but yeah, it's nice.
That was, and I was real quick on Clipper and Soul. That was something we did. Now, part of it was to honor my mom because I told you she was a hairstylist, and one of the reasons I wanted to do the business was to honor her, right? So I saw her in a lot of these hairstylists, but also it was our competitive advantage, right? It was part of our strategy, right? If we can hire the best hairstylist, guess what? Your experience as a client, as a customer is better. The conversation's better. The haircut itself actually is better, right? The entrance, right? The introduction kind of thing, as you're greeted, as you leave, the full experience, you can trust them more, right? The full experience was better. So that was a key part, is making it a great place to work. And we had a few innovations that helped us do that. We tried some profit sharing, right? So we took a cut every month and paid it out to the team. We had a pay time off, which hairstylists generally don't get. I saw my mom not get that when she was a hairstylist. So we added that. Maybe our bread and butter in some ways is we were very community focused. So every 3 weeks we would go out into the community at the local men's shelter, Wheeler Mission over on the west side. And we would do free haircuts for men with addiction recovery, or that were in addiction recovery. So these were guys not feeling too good about themselves and where they're at, just with their life. And so a fresh haircut can actually do a lot to lift someone's spirits and kind of give them a boost of confidence. So our team loved that, right? And we became known as that place that did those kinds of things. We had a number of other initiatives that were similar, but that was one of them that we were pretty consistent with for a couple of years. But career accelerant, right? That's the place you want to be at.
Professor Bo, I have a question just kind of about your experience with Clipper and Soul.
Yeah.
So you were talking kind of about your strategy. Would you say that you went into it with like the T algorithm in mind? Because you said you took the class, or was that just kind of something that happened naturally?
Yeah, so it's interesting. No, I didn't know about the T algorithm before I bought the business and kind of built the brand and all that stuff. But in hindsight, look back and I'm like, yeah, we did that. We did that too. And we kind of did that. So I was more applying it after the fact. But man, I will tell you, I was sitting in some ways where you're sitting, right? I was taking some business classes and doing some business certificates and various things. And I used that stuff. I genuinely used that stuff. I remember thinking, man, I'm so glad I was able to do some of that stuff. Because when you got to roll your sleeves up and put it into practice, it's helpful to have that knowledge base and that kind of structure. And I don't know how you're feeling, where you're at with your education, but man, a lot's thrown at you all, right? And sometimes I don't know if you realize how much of it you actually keep and how much sticks. Because if someone's like, hey, Abby, what'd you learn last year in that one class? You'd be like, I don't know. I know we did that one project, but you internalize it. Like it's stickier than you realize. Just because you can't regurgitate it, right, doesn't mean you don't internalize it. Doesn't mean you don't grow. Let me ask you this. Are you more creative than you were in high school? Somebody like, no, the creativity's been zapped out of me. All right, maybe. What about this? Are you a better critical thinker? Do you think you can solve problems better? You can think through things a little more, with a little more precision? Probably, right? But if I was to say, when did that happen? Tell me the class. Tell me the moment. It's not how it works, right? You kind of accumulate it. Versus, if I would say, hey, Abby, remember when you took that one Microsoft Excel class, right? And you literally learned that formula and now you know it and you can do that in perpetuity. Like there's a moment when you learn it and you get better. With creativity and critical thinking and emotional intelligence and all these important things, there's soft skills. There's no moment. Usually there's no time when you're like, that's when I got better with emotional intelligence, but you accumulate, right? You internalize and it builds up in you and you are better. You are better for it. So for what it's worth, man, if you're feeling discouraged with some of that, I think you all are growing, you're developing, you're getting better. Even if you can't remember the exact thing you talked about in that one class 2 years ago. Other questions?
I had a quick question. So I want to kind of take us back a little bit to like the Disney Plus, the Netflix. I think over the last year, we've seen kind of just a massive generation of like various streaming services. And I think my question really is there a point in which adding this type of like service, like streaming service, for example, does not create any sort of additional revenue in terms of like a rundle or anything like that for a company?
Probably, yeah. I mean, it's possible. We've seen Discovery Plus, Paramount Plus. It seems like we're seeing new ones all the time. So yeah, it's possible. I mean, HBO Max is an interesting example. I don't know what's going to happen with HBO Max. Anybody a fan? HBO Max? Yeah. I mean, they've got legit stuff, but guess who owns HBO Max? AT&T. AT&T sunk $60 billion, I think it was, into DirecTV. So they've got DirecTV now, but they also have their kind of classic cable service. So I don't know. I don't know what HBO Max's kind of ultimate angle is, right? as of now, they're positioning themselves as they've got some exclusive stuff and it's kind of premium, $15. But some would say they've kind of just become similar to like a Netflix, right? Where they're not premium necessarily anymore. They're just kind of another service. So I don't know. Yeah. But Varun, essentially you're asking like, is there a point where you're adding some of these types of services and it actually isn't adding up to anything substantial? Yeah. And I would say, yeah, you could definitely be right. Could definitely see that. That's why it's one variable in the algorithm of 8 total. And by the way, the question mark is for, applying it to specific industries, right? You might need to apply a different variable to a specific industry. So in music streaming, Spotify, I think they've got to find other channels of revenue because their main competitors have that, right? Apple Music's got a lot of different kinds of revenue. YouTube Music, different kinds of revenue. Amazon, different kinds of revenue. Spotify only has kind of music right now. So if they can diversify a little bit, I think that could help them. But anyhow, that's what that question mark is in the algorithm. So it's 8, maybe 9 or 10 variables. Hey, man, it's really good to be with you all. Again, I really respect and admire you. If you were in class today, you're on Zoom already today, and you still show up to participate and you ask questions, you engage, speaks very highly of you. And it's what I love about this season of life. I don't know what the heck the future holds, right? We'll see. We're all living kind of in a chapter or season of life, but man, this season of life, I absolutely love getting to cross paths with folks like you because you're driven, you're motivated, you're hungry. Hopefully not literally. If you are, go get a snack after we hop off here. But you desire to live a good life, a meaningful life, to improve your own life and that of your family, and it's pretty cool. And you're in a good position. You're in a good place. I'm biased. We're all biased because we're here, I guess. We believe in Kelly to an extent, but for what it's worth, you're in a pretty good place. You're in a pretty good place. If I can ever be helpful, shoot me an email. I'll do my best to grab some time with you. Talk through things, answer questions, whatever I can do to help. All right.
Yeah, I'll be sure to send out Professor's email after if you ever want to follow up with him. But Professor Bo, thank you so much. Your enthusiasm shined the entire presentation. I wish more of my professors were as enthusiastic as you. It would keep me awake more. But that was fantastic. Really want to thank you again for presenting to us. It was great.
I feel like I got to bring it because I'm your faculty advisor, right? Yeah. If you don't even, like your faculty advisor, then we got nothing here, man. We got nothing. Exactly. So, yeah. But anyways, thank you, Jake. And by the way, Jake and Will, high fives to you all. Thank you for organizing and kind of leading the club and the conversations we've had. You've got some great ideas, some great plans for the future. So I'm excited, right? Yeah. Hopefully we keep you for a couple years, right? Leading the charge and adding some new elements. And man, once everything opens up, right, here in the coming months, I think there's going to be new opportunities for the club and some exciting things. So
I agree.
Yeah, hopefully we could all do something in person next semester.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well,
big question moment. One big final question I just kind of thought of. Are you a Mickey Mouse Disney guy or like a Star Wars, Marvel? I'm trying to think what else they have. Like that route Disney.
Pixar.
Guy. Pixar? Yeah.
No. So I'm
I
all
like
the
Pixar.
Above. All the above. You were saying what else they have, and I said Pixar. Yeah, I like it all.
Oh, well, if you have any plugs into Lucasfilm.
Yeah, I don't
I'd love
have
to
any
hear it.
connections.
Oh, damn, that sucks. But yeah, I'm a big Star Wars guy. It's always been my thing.
Yeah.
Have you been on the like the Star Wars like ride or like the new edition? You have?
It's legit.
Is it better than? I mean, I assume you've been on the old one.
Yeah,
Is it 10x?
Rise of Resistance is. It's really elaborate. Yeah, the technology is incredible. The other ride's okay, but the Rise of Resistance ride is fantastic. The Millennium Falcon ride is okay, but I see some people jumping off. They must be Star Trek people. Star Trek people are hopping off here.
Technically, we're like 5 minutes over, but the Millennium Falcon was one of the ones that I kind of hoped would, blow you away.
It's good.
Stinks.
It's good, but the Rise of Resistance is a whole nother level of ride.
Yeah. Now my uncle worked at ILM, and they did a lot of the special effects from Star Wars. Yeah,
Wow.
that was a big. He knows I think he's met like George Lucas once or twice, which is really cool. But yeah, I guess that's my piece.
Good question. I'm happy to stick around if we got any more. Jake, I don't want to keep you and Will if you got to hop off.
I do have to hop off in a minute, and as soon as I leave, it's going to cut the meeting off. But because I just want to make sure that was known. Professor, I'll be sure to follow up with you in a couple of days. Thank you again. This was fantastic, and I want to keep moving forward with what we're doing because we have a lot of progress to be made. So appreciate all the help.
Yep. Awesome.
All right, guys. See ya.
See ya.